Good afternoon. Now I will tell you what you need and how you need to do to install ridge lubricators. What is needed? The comb lubricator itself, a mounting guide, silicone bushings, a lubricating element and a mounting plate. You will also need graphite grease if necessary. And a safety cable. All of this is included in the package. Now I want to tell you about the peculiarities of the structure of the bellows on cranes. So, here is a standard bellows, which we make ourselves, which is made taking into account the peculiarities of work and greasing devices. So, as you can see, it's made a fairly rigid version out of 50 gauge angle. Further to its special stops are welded additional in order to study its skew both to one and to the other side relative to the wheel during installation of this cage. Therefore, if you have on the cranes at the enterprises, the crane cage is made, well, and accordingly for a long service life, it will be enough. Now I will show you how to mount the correct GDS on the wheel of the overhead crane. On this Namatelnik have a mounting plate with a hole, which has a diameter larger than the welded nut on the GDS, which we do not have galvanized. Accordingly, this hole allows the GDS to be mounted with a certain angle, if necessary. The mounting plate is welded to the hanger, to one of the flat surfaces of the hanger. You can weld it on this side. You can weld it like this. Then the plate, in addition to being welded, can be bent to the required angle in order to install the GDS with the required angle perpendicular to the wheel flange. In addition, the GDS should not be mounted at the middle of the flange height, but close to it, as close as possible to its base and the transition to the cylindrical part of the wheel. Accordingly, weld the mounting plate, bend it as necessary, and then mount the GDS. Then the welded nut on a fairly large range of length can be adjusted, plus the lock nut, which will be tightened at the end. Regarding the weld nut, it can be placed regarding the lock nut. Can be located on the front side, can be located on the rear side. Accordingly, it will all have to be unscrewed and repositioned, and you will get quite a wide range of adjustments of axial position of the GDS relative to the wheel. The mounting plate can be welded either with a solid seam or not with a solid seam. A continuous weld is best, of course, for greater rigidity. Accordingly, bend if necessary. Set the necessary outreach of the GDS and lock it in place. Next, there is a special guide. In order to ensure the positioning of the GDS at the base of the wheel flange, we insert the guide as far as it will go. At the same time, we have the sleeve in the GDS. Insert the guide. It is already of a certain length. We insert it into the wheel flange. And accordingly, this positioning is done. Then we weld the nut. If necessary, you can then bend the plate further. Next, when we have set the GDS, one more thing. So, GDS should be installed at a slight angle, with a slope, so that if any dust, dirt, or contaminants, here some particles of dust, dirt, or pollution, and from here some precipitation in the form of rain, so that they all come out of here on the sloping surface during operation. Because if the gas distribution station is placed horizontally, all this can accumulate here under the sleeve, and some kind of jamming can occur. So we always install the gas mains with a slight angle. Already the mating plate will be welded a little higher and both GDS will be mounted with an inclination. It is best to mount the GDS with an inclination, but as close to the wheel axis as possible, so that the flange is as perpendicular to the lubricating element as possible. Once we have mounted all this, it will be necessary to put silicone bushings on the threads on this side and on that side to keep the threads clean. Here for this purpose we insert a pencil that rests in the repair and already install the rear part of the take, tighten to a stop. And that's it, the GDS is in operation. But at the same time, the cable will have a lock sticking out. This will be an indicator of wear of the lubricating element. The element will wear out, the cable will get shorter and shorter. Eventually, when the lubricating element wears out, there will be nothing left to the stop. The cable will go completely into the body of the GDS with the retainer. This will be an indicator that the pencil is completely worn out. Next we have a safety cable, which should be put between the nut and the lock nut. Or in some other place. But it is better to put it between them. And the second loop, the second end, is attached to some technological hole or bolt. Let's say, even this fastener. In case, if suddenly GDS at work will catch on something and the mounting plate will tear off, so that this GDS did not fall on anyone, and remained hanging on the insurance. Next, we have graphite grease. After welding the nut to the mounting plate, sometimes it is necessary to. The inside of the nut will be lubricated with graphite grease to make it easier to screw the GDS onto the nut.